All right. Hey, we're live. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you. I'm so excited to be with you today on Tuesday. What is it? The 21st? I think it is the 21st for today's episode of Real Estate News. Already spoke to one of my agents this morning, did a couple of emails with him. He's going to be writing up an offer. And that's part of my favorite part of my job, really, is talking with my agents and putting our clients in a position to win. You don't always win every time, but that is definitely one of my favorite things to do as being a broker at this agency, is interacting with my agents and answering their questions so that we can put them in the best position to win an offer in this particular case, or position a property in the market if we're listing it. So already got to do some of my favorite things today. Yesterday, as we said, we took in that deposit check. We have a commission check that's got to be coming in anytime today, I hope, because I want to get this commission check out to my agent, because we closed on that Thursday, and the attorney that closed the deal owes us the fee before I can write the commission check to my agent. So hopefully that will come in today, worst case tomorrow, because I would really love to get that in the mail to my agent. I'm a big believer in paying your agents right away. As soon as I get all the money in on a deal, and assuming it's closed, write that commission check, get that out the door. Nothing disincentivizes somebody than having to wait for your paycheck. So I small agency, I literally just write it at the desk over there. As long as all the money's in and all the paperwork is in, so we have all our compliance taken care of, then as long as the deal's closed, let's write that check. Let's take a look at the news today. We have had some news on the courtroom front with Anywhere and ReMax. And basically, it's just another step in the process where the judge has now approved preliminarily the settlement with Anywhere and ReMax. And both of these agencies are now using this as a way to, hey, we're in a better position to compete on the long term than everybody else that did not settle, basically, is the argument here. The judge is saying that the settlement was deemed fair, reasonable, and adequate. But the timing on this appears to be, how do we want to say this? Longer than I expected. So this is not expected to be all wrapped up as a settlement till sometime in the spring. You might remember that the Nosalek MLS PIN case was delayed until March of next year. And now this settlement seems to be somewhat approaching what, at least I think this is probably good for Anywhere and also for ReMax, somewhere trying to approach some type of universal settlement. And it would seem to be good move on behalf of the industry if they could somehow move to some type of universal way they could settle this entire thing. And that's probably going to be forced upon them probably eventually by the Department of Justice. So in this case, they're calling for settlements to be sometime finalized in the spring. The November 20 court documents did not provide further details of what policy changes will be mandated as part of the prior settlements. I am guessing because a lot of that will still be outstanding with the Department of Justice. So as you might remember, the Department of Justice and the plaintiffs in the big bomb-style launch shoot out of Kansas City were apparently, according to Mr. Ketchmark, the attorney for the plaintiffs, they were discussing things with the Department of Justice even before the trial started, before, during, and after. So we will see when the Department of Justice intervenes. Because when we had a settlement in the Nosalek case, it wasn't thereafter that the Department of Justice actually intervened. So if my recollection serves me, we had a preliminary approval of the MLS PIN Nosalek settlement, and that's when the Department of Justice stepped in, if I'm not mistaken. I think they waited for the preliminary approval by the judge before they stepped in. So you would imagine that would be the next shoe to drop, DOJ intervention. In the meantime, for now, though, as Inman points out, Anywhere and ReMax have both touted the prospective futures for their, in other words, they're trying to position this as being a win for them, which you can't. It's the best outcome. I don't know if it's a win, but it's the better. You're not losing by as much, I guess we'll put it that way. If the settlement is granted final approval by the Missouri court, ReMax said, all ReMax affiliates, including franchisees and agents, will be protected from claims connected to the lawsuits and any similar claims. And Anywhere has also echoed that sentiment as well. In other words, they're trying to pitch it that you better stay with ReMax, you better stay with Anywhere, or join us while you're at it, so that you can get effectively inoculated against any of this other baloney that's going out there. And as we've covered on this channel, there are multiple copycat lawsuits out there, so many that you, as we kind of jokingly said, you need a spreadsheet for. So that's all, good, well and good. And by the way, I'm going to put up my comment thing. If you want to throw in a comment, I am watching the comment tab over to my computer here in a second. Also, yesterday, we finally got a write-up out of the NAR Conference out in Anaheim. And I am not going to go over this other than to give you my kind of just read of this article, which I'm not going to scroll through. But this whole article just weighs on you as the story, what it really is, and not to negate the reporting that's done by Andrea B. here of Inman, but the whole article just kind of weighs upon you, and I think that's a good word for it, it demonstrates how larded, I think that's a good word too, larded, not that I'm a skinny mini here, but larded with process and committee this, committee that. It almost demonstrates, this article, of how the National Association seems to be crumbling under its own weight. And we're not going to go through the process of that, but it is just a painful article of this committee and that committee and the executive, and this, they're not happy with that. And just the internal politics of sometimes you get into these organizations and people get so wrapped up in it that they lose the point of why they're actually there. And oh man, just like when you read that article, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't have to sit through that. I'm so glad I didn't have to sit through that. Now, we have a Massachusetts angle on this whole National Association thing. And that angle is the kind of the second guy in charge here is a Massachusetts guy. So we have Tracy Casper. She's going to be the NAR president for 2023 and 2024. She took over from Mr. Purcell. And the waiting in the wings, who I guess would be the 2024 NAR president-elect. So does that mean he takes office in 2025? Is that what it means? But I think that's what it means. Is Kevin Sears from Springfield, Massachusetts. And I don't know him, but I have observed him on many, many occasions because he used to be chairman of the regulatory authority here in Massachusetts, what we call the Board of Registration. And he served on the Board of Registration for like a decade or something like that. And he was chairman for several years, of which, because I own a real estate school here and am licensed here as a broker in Massachusetts, I would attend on a very regular basis. And I would say that along with Tracy Casper, who did the video a little while ago, she has a very good presentation, level-headed. She's very likable. And I think she also is reflective of the members. What is it, like 60% of NAR members are women, I think, something like that, in their mid-50s or whatever is the demo. I don't know Tracy Casper. I've just watched that video once. But I would also say that Mr. Sears, who seems to be waiting in the wings, having observed him, again, don't know him personally, but having observed him many, many times, he's level-headed, fair, and he does engender a sense of trust when he speaks. He has this, kind of like this baritone voice, and he just seems how do I want to say this? Respectable Yeah, that's a good word for it. Respectable, level-headed, and fair in the dealings that I have had with him, as a testifying before the Board of Registration or observing the Board of Registration. So with Miss Casper and Mr. Sears, the temporary leadership seems to be in good hands, at least for the next couple of years. That's just kind of my brief observation there in regards to those personalities. We'll have to see how they continue to fight, because they are pledged to fight this battle. And what is the battle? Just so we all know, we already know that NAR has already crumbled on the commission rule. In other words, now you can theoretically offer 0% as a commission. So what are the last two things that these court cases are about? Number one, it's about the amount of money that NAR and its members might have to pay in order to satisfy these legal claims. Number two, it's whether or not eventually the Department of Justice and or the Federal Trade Commission eventually bifurcates the system, which means that the seller can pay the seller agent and the buyer can pay the buyer agent, and that's it. So also, I guess, add a third thing of whether or not the requirement that you join NAR and or the requirement that you be a realtor and to get an MLS account, whether those two things, so I guess that's four altogether, the total amount of money, whether or not they'll bifurcate the commission, whether you have to be a NAR member, and whether or not you have to be a NAR member to get MLS. So that's four things. I think, though, that's what we're fighting over right now, or that's what these lawsuits are going to be right now, none of which has been settled in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't seem that we're going to get anywhere on that, at least until next spring. All right. And under the nobody's really surprised by this department, we have a story out of Reason. Americans are still fleeing high tax states. Not a big surprise. We've covered this on this channel before. The latest IRS and census data show that people and businesses favor states with low and structurally sound tax systems, which can impact the state's economic growth and government coffers. Living here in Massachusetts, this is the type of truth which is a thought crime here in high tax states like Massachusetts, Illinois, in other words, where higher taxes, it is thought, have no impact on whether or not people are going to live here. That's the way things are thought about here in Massachusetts. By the way, I am very eager and looking forward to my trip to Florida, to the free state of Florida. I'll be in the free state of Florida in February. It'll be nice to get out of Massachusetts during the dead of winter. Going to go to the Daytona 500 and see my cousins and my friends down in the Fort Myers area as well. Which brings me to this other very interesting story. I'm actually surprised that Politico covered this, but it's a story that we've talked about a lot on this channel. Washington blinks as debt costs begin to bite. Increased annual spending on entitlements and interest could snowball in the coming decades, putting pressure on Washington to act earlier to rein in annual deficits. Of course, we saw in Argentina the election of Javier Milei, I believe his name is, and he is basically campaigned against inflation, which, if you listen to Janet Yellen and a lot of other people, the Fed has basically already conquered. It's just a matter of time now. We've made a lot of progress. Non-core inflation is down to 4%. Headline inflation is down to 3.2. The fight is over. Effectively, gin up the printing machine is effectively the message. Even though 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, everyone was touting higher for longer, that message is over apparently. But these things move slowly. And the simple fact of the matter is our budgets are just way out of whack, and our lending is way out of whack. And why am I talking about this on a real estate channel? Because effectively all that affects the 10-year bond And the 10-year bond affects the 30-year mortgage rate, which is probably the number one or one of the number one factors of where the real estate market is going to go. So, ignoring the daily news cycle is an important thing. If you look strategically about where mortgage rates are going to go, almost a lot of it has to do with the Fed, yes, but also with Congress and spending, which brings me to this point here from Brad Sherman, Democrat from California. Frankly, unless we have truly extraordinary economic growth, in other words, some type of burst of economic activity, productivity, we're headed for a pretty bad outcome. He doesn't even sound like a Democrat. You need revenue. Now he sounds like a Democrat. You need to deal with spending. That's fair enough. And you need to deal with entitlements, and you need to wonder whether democracy is capable of doing that. Well, I don't know if I like the last term of that, but because what is that? What is he trying to say? We should get rid of the democracy. Who's this guy? Brad Sherman, D from California. I don't know, but at least half of what he said seemed pretty reasonable. Although, as I told you a minute ago, I don't really believe in raising taxes here. We have to cut the government spending because that's going to drive our deficits. And that means the 10-year goes up, and that means mortgage rates go up. By the way, what were mortgage rates yesterday at Mortgage News Daily? They closed up just a tick at 7.38. 7.38. Later today, we have existing home sales coming out later today. And also, I think the market is going to be fairly quiet until we get the Fed minutes, because Fed minutes come out at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Right now, we're looking at right across the board, the 10-year's up a touch. Dow futures down 60 points. Down market is futures are looking down just a touch. And the 10-year up just a touch. Basically, those are kind of like seesaw situations. Oil holding steady somewhere around $77 a barrel. What I thought was really interesting, we brought to you very briefly the other day, was the Morgan Stanley forecast for next year. And my new favorite website, Resi Club, thank you, Lance Lambert, for putting this website together, forecast and has a more detailed description of the forecast. And Morgan Stanley's base case, as we talked to you yesterday, is minus 3% on home prices in 2024. And here's their base case. We believe that lower mortgage rates, so probably they're predicting, into the upper sixes, will simultaneously spur demand as well as increase the volume of listings. While the first could exert upward pressure, the latter is a headwind. Okay, good. That's pretty simple. And their math on this says minus 3% for 2024. I was really interested in their bull case because they're basically giving three forecasts here. Morgan's bull case is plus 5% for 2024. With so many housing statistics at levels we have rarely seen in the past, over the past several decades, it's hard to envision housing activity and home prices evolving differently from what we have laid out above. As mortgage rates come down, affordability will remain under substantial pressure. However, consumer has recently seen mortgage rates above 8 and might jump at the chance for 6.5% or 7% mortgages. And that's obviously going to spur demand, which would spur price. So that's their case there. Now, their bear case is down 8%, down 8%. On the other hand, if rates remain elevated or the economy slips into recession, demand could soften further. And while we do not believe defaults and foreclosures would spike, and thus distress transactions will increase significantly in this cycle, especially not in 2024. In other words, people still have a lot of equity, so we probably won't see a bunch of defaults in foreclosures, according to Morgan Stanley, but we will see job losses, and that's going to effectively mean a lower price situation for next year. What I love about this Resi Club article is they do point out that no matter where you are. And this is definitely something that we always say about real estate. Real estate is local, right? If home prices fall in 2024, it's possible many regional markets could still have past positive house gains, positive gains. Well, I remember seeing this during after the great financial crisis, not only with Boston market, but even inside the Boston market. After the great financial crisis, there was a huge push for Metro Boston. So if you're familiar with the Boston, inside the 128 area, let's just say the 20 miles from downtown Boston. And if you were beyond that 20-mile radius, so to speak, your prices just sat there. Like here in Plymouth, I'm 50 miles away from the city. My prices just sat here for years. I would be hearing these stories about how the Boston apartment market, how the Boston market is going up 30, 40 miles away from my house. And my price would just sit there, and it sat there for years. So that's where you come in. If you're an agent, you have to kind of cut through the headlines and tell people, hey, I know you're seeing stories in the local media, the mainstream media, the Globe or the Boston Herald, prices are up, but they're up if you're buying in Brookline or Quincy, because those are close to the city. And if you're in Franklin or Plymouth, not so much or not at all. And that's where we come in, our professional expertise and understanding your market. That's why every month I do a market update for not only the statewide, but also locally here in Plymouth, because we can have these bifurcations where the Massachusetts numbers look good, but even inside of Massachusetts, you have all these miniature markets. And I think that's absolutely possible where we could have markets, and I think Resi Club's done a really good job at kind of showing this case, where all three of these predictions could come true depending upon where you are in the country, whether it's Buffalo or Austin or Seattle or Boston. All of these things can come true. It really depends upon where you are. And in a way, the national forecast doesn't really matter that much, because are your clients buying a house nationwide? No, they're buying it in one singular community, wherever that happens to be. Yes, national factors play into that, but it's not like the most important thing. The most important thing is what's happening in your local market. And of course, that's where you can add value as an agent or a broker. All right, just a quick bottom of this page here. I really like this chart that Resi Club put together. Again, all credit to Lance Lambert here on the heat chart of where big banks think that interest rates are going to go next year. Fannie Mae, Mortgage Bankers Association, which has famously been wrong recently, way too optimistic, and Goldman Sachs. I'm going to be on the Goldman Sachs end of this. And in fact, this chart here from a heat map point of view is from 5 to 8%. If I understand the chart, I'm going to just say that I, as you know, I think we're going to go back to 8%, but that's just me. Most of them are somewhere in the low sevens, Again, we have existing home sales coming in today at 10 o'clock. And I wanted to bring to you this video. I was so impressed with this next video that I wanted to bring to you. By the way, tomorrow's show is going to be from the home studio, which if you saw my post on the channel, I'm building a little home studio. We're going to break down this equipment and bring it home so I can broadcast from home, which is only 15 minutes away. Tomorrow's show is going to be from the home studio, but all credit to Mike Zuber. This was varsity level. And I want to bring in his video that he did while he's on vacation in Austria, literally floating down the Danube. And we're going to bring up his call for existing home sales. Let's bring it up here.
We get existing home sales just to kind of level set. Last month, 3.96. Expectations are 3.93. I am, folks, going below 3.9. I think 3.9 is where we're going. And you can actually see we are just taking off
All right, so he's below 3.9. As you know, he's been a real bear on this number. Look, he was really looking for under 4 quite some time ago. He finally got a under 4 print, and now he's going for under 3.9. And when you look at that, that has a definitely impact upon your business because that means a dearth of transactions. So you've got to fight harder to get those transactions because there's fewer of them, right? And look where this guy is. This is definitely varsity.
From the lovely city of Melk. Yes, folks, Melk in Austria. If you ever get a chance to go to Austria, get a chance to cruise down the Danube and see Melk. It is a gorgeous, cute little town, and the people are very warm and friendly. A little bit of a microclimate. It's pretty awesome. So,
all right. So I just got to give him all credit for giving his update, his financial calls while floating down the Danube. That is not something you see every day. Good for him. Tomorrow's show will be from the home studio. We got to go fix it up and get it ready for tomorrow. It might be a little bit rough, but it should work just fine. Until then, have a great day. Go make some money. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.